A year ago, Charles Leclerc triumphed at his home in Monte Carlo. Today, he talks about one of the most difficult weekends since he's been in Ferrari. But beware, between rain, 2 mandatory stops, new updates, and an SF25 still to be understood. The Monaco Grand Prix 2025 risks exploding into something much more chaotic than expected. And within this chaos could hide the opportunity that no one expects, including Ferrari. Stay until the end, because in this video we discover what can really happen in Monte Carlo. If you enjoy the videos, hit like to show your support. Let's get started. Leclerc, speaking to the press on Thursday, was clear. He predicts a difficult weekend, highlighting how the slow curves of the track are an obvious weak point for the single-seater. The uniqueness of the city circuit can always hold surprises, but the current technical difficulties of the car do not make the task easy for either the drivers or the engineers. He admitted that his expectations for the home race are among the lowest since he has been racing for Ferrari. The reason is mainly related to the characteristics of the car, which has shown great difficulties precisely in slow corners, which is the predominant element of the Monaco track. Despite this, he trusts in his abilities on city circuits, where the driver's talent can really make a difference. He recalled how even in the past, in difficult seasons, surprising results were achieved in Monaco. He still believes in himself and hopes to overcome the car's limits thanks to his driving. One element that could change the balance is the new rule of 2 mandatory pit stops. According to Leclerc, this could create chaos and open up unprecedented strategic opportunities, especially for those with 2 closely spaced cars. The strategies could prove to be decisive and overturn the course of the race. Returning to the problems of the SF25, Leclerc explained that it is not difficult to understand why slow curves are a weak point this year, despite his inability to share technical details. However, he emphasized that Monaco, being a track without fast curves, allows you to set the car exclusively for slow curves. This could bring out aspects that have been hidden so far, even though there have been no positive signals in those conditions so far. Looking to the near future, the Barcelona Grand Prix will probably be decisive for the
2025. It will be
there that a new technical directive will come into effect concerning the flexibility of the wings, and Ferrari has worked hard to be ready. At the same time, the team is in a critical phase where it will have to decide whether to continue developing the SF25 or start focusing entirely on the project.
2026.
Leclerc has clearly stated that they do not want to give up. Now, 2024 has shown how quickly hierarchies can change, as demonstrated by McLaren, and the Maranello team wants to seize every opportunity. The driver also confirmed that several technical innovations are being prepared to improve performance without providing details or timelines. The team is pushing to bring the new components as soon as possible, but it remains to be seen whether they will be enough to close the gap with the best and whether they will be sufficient to aim for victories. One of the priorities remains the performance in qualifying, where the SF25 has shown its weakest point, as demonstrated by the elimination of both drivers in Q2. At Imola, Leclerc hopes that the novelties can at least allow the team to be competitive on Saturday. Because if the car has a good pace in the race, starting too far back prevents any comeback. Finally, speaking of the technical regulations planned for 2026, Leclerc expressed quite clear doubts. He admitted that he is not convinced by the new rules, both for the behavior of the future single-seaters and for the type of engines that will be used. He believes that the cars could be less enjoyable to drive and that it is currently difficult to understand the competitive potential, although he hopes that development can address some of the current uncertainties. Looking ahead, the focus is on the Barcelona race. That's where new technical rules regarding wings will come into effect. And Ferrari has worked hard to be ready. For Leclerc, that will be a crucial stage that could change the game, as happened last year with McLaren's comeback. Until that moment, it will be essential to collect as many points as possible to stay hooked to the train of the best. Meanwhile, Monte Carlo poses a unique challenge. Leclerc secured his first home track victory there last year, but repeating will not be easy. The track, made up almost exclusively of slow curves, heavily penalizes the SF25, which has shown its greatest weaknesses in those conditions. Despite this, Leclerc hopes that the unique characteristics of the track can bring out some hidden strengths. Another central element of the Ferrari season is the arrival of Lewis Hamilton. Leclerc spoke about the positive relationship with his new teammate, describing the presence of the 7-time world champion as an opportunity for personal and professional growth. Observing his approach, the way he works with engineers, and how he handles problems has already been an important learning opportunity for him. According to Leclerc, Hamilton's driving style is extremely refined and at times similar to his own. Both tend to be aggressive entering curves, and this has allowed the team to follow a well-defined technical direction. Having a shared vision on the car's behavior helps in tuning and development, and this could prove valuable for improving performance in the second half of the season. From a technical standpoint, Ferrari arrives in Monaco with the rear wing used in 2024. A choice dictated by the need to contain costs. This type of aerodynamic element, specifically designed for circuits like the one in the Principality, where maximum load is required, finds few opportunities for use during the year. Reusing it saves resources within the budget cap limitations. It's not the first instance this season. Already in Imola, there was talk of a specific rear inherited from a previous project, even if it was never mounted on the track. The current wing is the one with maximum incidence, ideal for dealing with the low average speeds of Monaco. Meanwhile, efforts persist at Maranello to resolve the SF25's issues. The start of this season has forced the team to modify the development plan, focusing first on understanding the defects of a car, described by multiple sources as having abnormal behavior. This has led to delaying the introduction of aerodynamic updates to focus on the rear suspension, recently analyzed in the wind tunnel. However, an important test took place in Imola. On that occasion, Ferrari approved a new technical solution on the rear brake baskets, a fundamental part of the tire cooling system. This work, which began as early as Bahrain with internal modifications to the brake ducts, led to an evolution that later became definitive. During the Emilian weekend, the new wheel corners have been promoted and are now present on both SF25s, even in Monte Carlo. The improvement mainly concerns the thermal management of the inner area of the rim, a complex technical aspect to optimize without direct track tests. The benefits are not revolutionary, but clear enough to justify the stable introduction of the new component. On the contrary, McLaren has adopted a completely different approach for the MCL39 compared to last season. The new rear wing features a revised main plane and a much sharper leading edge, although with a smaller frontal area compared to Ferrari. Two opposite philosophies, but with the same goal: to generate the maximum possible load to tackle a circuit where aerodynamic efficiency is less relevant compared to other tracks. The soft setup allows the SF25 to better absorb the irregularities of the asphalt and to handle the most violent curbs without problems, always maintaining maximum contact between the tires and the track. The ground clearances have been increased compared to other circuits to prevent the bottom from touching the asphalt in the most uneven sections, resulting in loss of load and risk of damage. This type of setting also helps to improve traction when exiting a curve, an aspect where Ferrari has shown good signs. Precision in corner entry is another key point in Monaco. The understeer is there. It's a well-known behavior of the SF25, its enemy number one. To limit it, the front divergence is increased, and in some cases a bit of controlled oversteer is also accepted. This allows the car to turn more agilely in the bends, also taking advantage of the rear slip effect. The differential plays a fundamental role. A more open setting during release improves the rotation of the rear axle. This is particularly useful in the slowest curve of the World Championship, where drivers often have to use both hands to complete the steering. The weather forecast for Saturday in Monte Carlo indicates a 65% chance of rain with possible brief showers, a possibility that could reshuffle the cards in qualifying, even though the importance of starting ahead remains intact on a circuit where overtaking is practically impossible. Despite 2 mandatory pit stops being expected in the race, the starting position will continue to be crucial. After the disappointing qualifying at Imola, where both Leclerc and Hamilton were eliminated in Q2 and then recovered to 6th and 4th position, Ferrari is seeking redemption. Leclerc, known for his speed on the single lap, has already achieved pole position in Monaco in 2021, 2022 and 2024, showing great affinity with the track. However, this year the SF25 has proven to be particularly difficult in qualifying, especially in slow corners. Speaking at a press conference, Leclerc explained that the layout of the circuit does not suit a single-seater well, which loses ground precisely in the slower sections. While admitting that on paper it doesn't seem like a favorable track, he left a glimmer of hope. Monaco is an atypical circuit and could still hold some surprises. When asked about possible rain on Saturday, Leclerc said he was not aware, but acknowledged that mixed conditions could change the balance. However, he emphasized that the car's problems would not disappear with water. The structural deficiencies of the SF25 remain, and the rain, although it can alter the scenario, is not a guarantee of competitiveness, especially considering that Ferrari has rarely shone in the wet in recent seasons. Lewis Hamilton, fresh from the Imola Grand Prix, reported spending the following Monday at the Maranello simulator to test new technical solutions. He praised the tireless work of Ferrari engineers and mechanics, highlighting the team's commitment even in the most complicated moments. The Brit explained that the team gathered useful data in Romagna, but it remains clear that qualifications are the weak point of the SF25, especially in tire management. Hamilton revealed that he and the team have developed some ideas to improve the situation and that they will be tested in the Monaco weekend. However, he clarified that the Monaco track is not the ideal environment for definitive feedback given its uniqueness and the particular driving conditions required. The 7-time world champion said he is growing more comfortable with Ferrari as his acclimatization continues. He describes the process as a mutual challenge, but notes a growing internal harmony that he hopes can reflect positively on the rest of the season. Regarding expectations for the Monaco Grand Prix, Hamilton is cautious. He knows that the circuit highlights Leclerc's qualities, but it remains to be seen if the SF25 can be competitive. Monaco's slow curves may not be the most favorable track for Ferrari. Finally, Hamilton commented on the introduction of the mandatory double stop scheduled for Sunday's race. According to him, it's positive that different solutions are being tried because repeating the same pattern always leads to the same results. He is curious to see if these changes will have an effect on the show on the track. The mandatory introduction of 2 stops and the use of very soft tires could change the dynamics of a Grand Prix that has historically been flat from a tactical point of view. The undercut, often difficult to apply in Monaco, could come in handy, provided you find a clear track. Traffic will inevitably be a factor to manage, and safety cars or possible red flags could disrupt any plan. Among the most discussed hypotheses is that of teams in the rear, which could make both stops already in the first laps. For example, right after the start and during a possible safety car, thus taking advantage of possible strategic benefits in case of neutralizations. One of the biggest fears, however, concerns traffic in the lane. BOX, the order of the boxes, established based on the 2024 Constructors' Standings, sees McLaren at the entrance of the pit lane and Sauber at the end. In case of group pit stop with close vehicles, those at the beginning of the lane risk having to wait a long time before leaving, increasing the risk of unsafe release. The situation is especially dire in Monte Carlo, with limited spaces. Strategies are anticipated to be more chaotic than normal. Simulations have shown that the only realistic way to make an overtaking move in a race is to have a pace difference of at least 3 seconds. So the strategy, both in terms of pit stop timing and cooperation between teammates, will be crucial. Albon, for example, recalled Haas's move in Jeddah in 2024, where Magnussen had slowed down to favor Hülkenberg. Teams are contemplating differentiated strategies between drivers, sometimes sacrificing one to capitalize on potential events like safety cars. This flexibility could prove to be a decisive weapon, especially for those who have nothing to lose and can dare to make moves outside the box. Max Verstappen arrives at the Monaco Grand Prix with his feet firmly on the ground. After the victory in Imola, the 4-time world champion has scaled down expectations for the weekend in the Principality, hinting that the Red Bull RB21 might struggle on the extreme characteristics of the track. Monaco is not an optimal track for us, stated the Dutch champion, highlighting how the aggressive curbs and slow turns represent a weak point of the single-seater, just as it happened in 2024. The feeling with the RB21 has improved thanks to the updates introduced at Imola, but Verstappen emphasized that it's not a revolution but rather a refinement. The main concern is low-speed handling, where Red Bull has already faced issues, including at Imola. Even though we won, we weren't the strongest in the slow corners, Max explained, implying that there could be similar or worse difficulties in Monaco. Verstappen has not ruled out the possibility of a good qualification, but he preferred not to commit. It's hard to say if we'll be in the top 3. Last year, I pushed to the limit and made a small mistake in turn 1. This happens when you must give your all, reading between the lines. Red Bull is still formidable, but McLaren, Mercedes, and Ferrari make qualifying unpredictable this time, with Red Bull possibly not being the favorite. The 2 pit stops during the race might provide an opportunity to solve the puzzle. Monaco could hold more than one surprise. George Russell looks at the Monaco Grand Prix with a combination of confidence and caution. The Mercedes V16 has shown good performance on the qualifying lap, and on a track like Monte Carlo, where overtaking is almost impossible, starting in front is everything. The Brit is banking on this. Qualifying is our strong point, and Monaco is the perfect place to capitalize on it. However, the 2 mandatory pit stops imposed this year reshuffle the deck. Russell understands this. Previously, managing position and tires sufficed, but now it's different. We will also need to have a good race pace, and so far it has not been our strong point. The start strategy will also be crucial, especially in case of a safety car in the first laps. Russell considers the soft advantageous in high-risk interruption scenarios, but every scenario remains open. Mercedes needs to confirm the signs of growth, and Russell appears motivated. I want to see what happens. It will be a very interesting race. Interesting, if we manage to start ahead, we can really have our say. If you like the video, hit like, subscribe, and activate the bell so you don't miss the next ones. Write what you think in the comments, and see you next time.